Hi everybody, back with some more videos. Now, I've not been making some videos for a little while. I've took a little break, but I thought I'd come back and do quite a few for Halloween. Now, Halloween's always been one of the best times of the year for me. There's loads to do, parties when I was a kid, trick or treating, and it's always been a really magical time with the start of autumn as well. And being a nerd as well, there's just so many amazing TV shows, films to watch around this time, and it's always been a tradition for a lot of TV shows in Britain and North America to do Halloween specials. So I thought this year, instead of reviewing them one by one, I'd do a tier list of my favourite Halloween specials. Now, in this video I'm doing one-off or TV specials of TV shows. Now, I'm not adding any Simpsons Treehouse of Horror in these ones because there's that many of them. I thought I'd do a separate video of my favourite ones. So this is just for TV Halloween specials. As well, also, this is my personal opinion, so it's not a definitive list, it's what I've chose, which I really enjoy. And I've not done bad ones, I've just done the best to the least favourite, so no negativity here, it's just what I prefer the most and what I like the least. So yeah, without further ado, let's have a look, and I hope you join me in this video and some other videos that I'm going to be doing around the Halloween period. Let's start from the beginning at the bottom tier. And the first one is the King of Queens episode. This is quite a funny episode in which Arthur forbids Doug for having Halloween in his house. You can see him throwing the pumpkin on the floor and the fun-sized Kit Kat out the door.
What is it doing in this house?
Dad?
It's a Halloween thing for the kids. What are you... There will be no Halloween in this house. Do you understand? It's forbidden. Forbidden!
This is quite a funny episode that explains Arthur's neuroses around Halloween, and Doug inadvertently causing Arthur to have a heart attack. And you see Doug going to extreme lengths to make up to him, and eventually breaking into a pizza restaurant to get him some lemon ices. I put this quite low at the bottom because, with it being a Halloween episode, it's not necessarily scary, it's just based around Halloween. So that's why it's quite low on the list, but it is a really funny episode and there is some really hilarious bits in it. So yeah, so the first one on the list is the King of Queens episode. Moving on to the next one, we've got The Office, the USA version. The Halloween episode, the first ever one from season 2, episode 5. This is a really funny episode where Michael's got a dilemma why he needs to fire someone by the end of the month, and he's waited until the last day, which is the Halloween party. This adds to the cringe value as well, having to give someone horrible news dressed in a costume. There's some really cringy parts as well, with Michael asking Oscar about his costume choice, and also Michael questioning Kelly's costume choice as well. It's not necessarily a scary episode, but an absolute horror show if you don't like cringe comedy. Extra credit in this one as well for Dwight's Sith Lord costume as well. There's some really funny parts as well when he's doing a role play, finding out who he wants to fire, and yeah, it's a really funny episode, and again set on Halloween adds to the comedy value. I think they took inspiration from the UK Office that was set on Red Nose Day to do this one, but it doesn't take away how good this episode is. So moving on to the next tier, I'm going to start with Gary Tank Commander. Now this is a comedy written by Greg McHugh and focuses on some corporals in a tank regiment in the British Army. Now, this was the Halloween episode of a party on the barracks. And it shows you the British tradition of bobbing for apples on Halloween. Before this happens though, Gary upsets a fortune teller who says that he's going to die, and three things happen that makes him believe this. It's quite a good Halloween episode, quite unsettling to some bits with the captain's really creepy nieces, and the bits in the woods are quite scary, and there's a bit as well when he's actually apple bobbing and you think he's actually died. It's quite scary when you watch it the first time, with it being like the last episode of the series as well. You're worried it might actually happen, so it's a really good episode. And it's a really worthy Halloween one as well. There's also a really cool thriller rendition as well in one of the cutaway bits that they do with sort of like YouTube videos when they're in Afghanistan, or they do the thriller bit. That's really good. I just wanted to mention that as well. The next one on the list is the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air episode. This one is a good episode where Hilary arranges an appointment with a fortune teller and psychic to try and make contact with Trevor, who died in a bungee jumping accident in one of the previous seasons. And Will ends up offending Mr. Scorpius, who was the psychic and fortune teller, and ends up putting a hex on Will. There are loads of really funny things happens during the hex, such as Uncle Phil losing his job and Hilary ended up getting with Jazz, and Carlton's hair changing colour as well. This is a really classic Halloween episode, and it's a really funny one as well. There's some really hilarious moments, especially with Carlton dressed up as Macaulay Culkin, and the outtakes at the end of the episode are really hilarious to watch as well. So, a really solid Halloween episode, this one, and really funny to watch.
But it'll cut into my trick-or-treating time! Oh, all right.
So moving on to the next tier, the first episode is the real Ghostbusters Forever Halloween. Now with the Ghostbusters being about catching ghosts, to do a Halloween episode I'd have to do something special, and this episode is really good. It sort of shows how Halloween started and where it originated from. And with it not being entirely accurate, there is some truths in the episode, and it's a really fun and has really scary bits to watch as well. I remember as a kid being quite scared with the Pumpkin Man, and with them capturing Slimer as well. I remember not liking that, worried that they were going to hurt him and turn him evil. And I remember this being quite upsetting as a child, worried about Slimer. The whole episode is available to watch on YouTube for free on the Ghostbusters YouTube channel as well, so you can watch the episode in full if you don't have the DVDs. But a really fun episode to watch. It's got all the Ghostbusters humour, and with being a Halloween episode, it's slightly more scary than the original episodes. But I really recommend you watch this one. So the next one on this list is the Halloween episode of South Park. Now I picked this particular episode just because it has the band Korn in it. I just think it's really cool how they actually got their voices to do it, because South Park normally, when they have celebrities on, they do their own voices, but the band Korn actually were in it, and I love how it's a type of Scooby-Doo episode with them trying to get the South Park to do the gig and have a little adventure on the way. It's just an awesome episode. Even Jonathan Davis talk like it's a Scooby-Doo episode and they've got their own van and stuff. I just think it's a really funny episode. Again, not scary, just really hilarious that they managed to get Korn to be in this type of episode, especially around the time as well when they were at the most popular in America. It was around the time when Bloodstock, when the album Issues was coming out as well, so they were at the peak at the time as well. It was just so cool seeing them do this type of episode. So moving up to the next tier, we're looking at an episode of Only Fools and Horses, Friday the 14th. Now this wasn't isn't necessarily a Halloween episode, but it is quite a scary episode. It's hilarious, but also scary because Del ends up alone in a cottage with an axe murderer, which is quite rare for an episode of Only Fools and Horses being that serious, but the way John Sullivan wrote it just made it absolutely hilarious as well. And I think with it being called Friday the 14th, it's perfect to watch around Halloween time. This is also my favourite one as well, because we normally go on holiday in Cornwall as well, so we always watch it on the Friday night as well while we're down there. But there's some really funny bits where Del and Rodney are terrified in the cottage, and there's just some really hilarious comedy for a really serious situation. And yeah, so this one goes really high up on my list because it's really funny, and especially how Del finds it as a money-making scheme as well, with the only way Del can. So the next episode again isn't necessarily a Halloween episode, it's more like a scary episode in the series, and I'm going to go for Red Dwarf Polymorph. Now this one came with a warning at the beginning of the episode that it was scary, and it's a really good episode, but again hilarious. About a shape-shifting genetically modified creature that feeds on emotions. And there's some really alien-like bits in the episode, and there's some really hilarious comedy moments, but it did come with a warning at the beginning because it was so scary, so I mean at the time it was never done. This wasn't released on Halloween as well, it was a month after. It was on the 20th of November 1989 it was released. But this could have easily been a Halloween episode.
Alphabetti spaghetti?
So the next episode as well wasn't set on Halloween, but I consider it definitely a Halloween episode. It's the episode of The Young Ones from Season 2 called Nasty. Now, this had a different opening, sort of like the old style B-movies, and just the whole episode is like a horror theme. Hilarious, and there's some really cutbacks to like old vampire films, and they've even got The Damned performing as well. So this is just an amazing episode with Alexis Hill playing Dracula. He tells him he's a driving instructor from Johannesburg, and they'll lock him in the bathroom, and about them watching video nasties. And it also says the famous line from The Young Ones.
Astronaut, the video.
Oh! Have we got the video?
Yes, we've got your video!
An amazing episode of The Young Ones. It's one of my favourites, and I always watch it on Halloween. If you've not seen this one, I would suggest you watch it. There's just some really hilarious bits in it with Neil in the bath and Rick finding out that Rick wears a dress and Neil's wearing it. Some really hilarious bits in there, so I'd really advise you watch this if you've not seen it before. So moving on to the final tier now, and starting off again with another Rick Milne and Ed Edmondson series, Bottom. Now this Halloween episode is an absolute classic. It's just so funny. I watch it every Halloween, maybe 2 or 3 times, and it never gets boring. Just absolute hilarity. The costumes, the Halloween party, the electric cattle prod. There's just so much in this episode. It's just hilarious when they find out it's Halloween, so they decide to have a party and raise some money by trick-or-treating, and end up taking the cattle prod out, but Richies keep on using the cattle prod and having an accident. It's just absolutely hilarious. There's so many things that happen in this episode. Just so funny. Eddie's banana costume, the exploding carrots. There's just so many hilarious moments in this. And the Sprouts of Evil as well, the Sprouts Mexican, which is a tradition in our house now to make it on Halloween. So yeah, I've got this in the top tier because it's an absolute classic and still one of the best comedy Halloween episodes I think there is.
Here. Right, well, that's it. Decision made. I'll have to wear the green tights now.
So the next one on the list is the first offering from Steve Pemberton and Reece Shearsmith on this list, which is Psychoville. Now this was a Halloween episode set between season 1 and 2, and it shows the story of some researchers breaking into the Ravenhill Mental Hospital and to do some research on a show that they're doing. And one of the researchers tells a story about how he broke into there as a child and was caught by Edwina Kensington, who was the mental health nurse from the first series, and she sits him down and tells him some stories, which pans out to be the story of Mr. Jelly, Joy Aston, and David and Maureen, who were regulars in the first series. Now these are really quite scary stories as well. It's quite dark comedy. It's not nothing to do with the first series. They are standalone stories, but they are really good. Where Mr. Jelly gets haunted by trick-or-treaters, and Nurse Joy with how she gets rid of her husband, and David and Maureen how they pick up a hitchhiker, and it's a case of mistaken identity, and they're both murderers. Really comedic, but really scary as well, especially the Mr. Jelly one. I remember being quite haunted by that, watched it for the first time, and I still don't think I'd watch it on my own. So yeah, it's a really cool episode, and towards the end of the episode as well, it moves into season 2 quite well the way it's done, so I'd really advise you watch it. A really cool episode. So moving on to the next episode on the list, it's Quantum Leap. Now this is from season 3 episode 5. It's called The Boogeyman. This is the Halloween episode, and it's a really good one where Sam leaps into a horror writer, but something's really off with this one, and it's a really cool episode, really freaky and scary. I'm not going to give it away because I think you should watch it yourself, because I didn't realise this existed until I got the Quantum Leap box set and watched it, and I didn't realise it was a Halloween episode at first, but it really threw me off with the way Al acts during it, and there's a really cool twist at the end why he changes history, and there's just involved a young kid called Stevie in his car with a mind of its own, and his pet dog called Cujo. But yeah, a really cool episode. It's quite scary as well. Some bits with evil Al. I remember that was absolutely terrifying when I watched it for the first time, so really advise to watch this one, and it's made it really high up on the list for that reason. So the next one on the list is another entry from Steve Pemberton and Reece Shearsmith. This time it's inside number 9, Deadline. Now this was a live Halloween episode. It wasn't filmed on Halloween, it was on the Sunday before, and it was done in the premise of being a live episode. They publicised it for quite a while that it was a live episode coming out of Granada Studios, stating that it had a reputation of being a haunted studio, and there was a couple of episodes that happened on Most Haunted, and there was a few incidences that they mentioned about when Bobby Davro got stuck in the stocks and fell head first, and about a crew member being killed, and they were mentioning this quite a lot in interviews and in the Radio Times, and it came on as a live episode, and during the broadcast they lose sound quality and it goes silent, and then it cuts back to BBC Two stating that they're losing sound and they're trying to get back to it, and it's just watching it live, you weren't sure if this was part of the show or if something was happening, but it was really exciting. And as you know, if you've not seen it, I would really advise you watch it, because what it descends into is amazing, and watching it live you weren't sure if it was really happening or not. I mean, with the cast as well, they had Stephanie Cole as well. It's just an amazing episode, just so much stuff happens on it, and it's just an amazing Halloween episode as well, considering they put it across as a live episode as well. Really, it's a really decent episode to watch. Halloween, since it was broadcast in 2018, I watch it every year now as well, without fail.
Let us be.
So for the final episode, which I think is the best of all time, we'll go back to 1992 on Halloween evening. Now this episode was perceived as a live broadcast. It was going to be an all-night broadcast of a house that was shown as haunted. Yet the episode is called Ghost Watch, and it was presented by Michael Parkinson, Sarah Green, and Mike Smith and Craig Charles. It was set in a studio and also live at the house, with Sarah Green and Craig Charles as the live broadcasters, with Michael Parkinson in the studio. And it was shown as a live broadcast, although there was some concern, rightly so, that people would be too scared by this. So before the programme aired, it stated that it was a work of fiction, and also the phone line that it was asking people to ring up if you saw anything scary or if you had any spooky ghost stories, would have stated that it was a work of fiction. However, the phone lines actually got jammed so much by people ringing up that it was just getting engaged tone, so people who tuned in a few minutes before it was about to start wouldn't have got this warning. And there was a lot of people who genuinely believed that it was a possession and a haunting. There was some people ringing up to complain because it was too scary, and they let the kids watch it even though it was past the watershed. And it did get really terrifying at some points where there was the haunting taking place, because it did start out as quite light-hearted, with Craig Charles not really believing what was going on, and them playing a prank on Sarah Green, and also with it getting on later and later into the episode, it was getting worse and worse, and it just turned into absolute chaos with what was going on. And it's a really scary episode to watch. I mean, I remember watching this when it was live, and towards the end of it, I remember them telling me it wasn't real, don't worry. But a lot of people didn't get that, and whether they turned it off towards the end, not seeing the end credits. It caused a lot of complaints, and it was so controversial, they did blame it on a young person actually taking his own life because of it. Now, it was never proved it was Ghostwatch, but because of this, the BBC have never aired it to this day, but you can get it on DVD, and it built up quite a cult following, and I do believe the Inside Number 9 episode has a lot of inspiration for their episode as well. But yeah, this is definitely I think, one of the greatest Halloween episodes to ever air. It was the first of the time. I mean, this was long before the internet and YouTube, and to do something so daring on BBC, especially when satellite TV was still in its infancy in the early 90s, and there was only 4 terrestrial channels on BBC, so the majority of the country's population would have been watching this. I just think it was amazing that they managed to pull it off and do it, and we're still talking about it 30 years after. That's how amazing it was. And it's the 30-year anniversary this year as well, so I think it does deserve to be at the top of the list for that reason. Okay, so that's my tier list for the Halloween episodes. I hope you enjoyed it, and if there's some that you've not watched before, I hope you get round to watching them, please leave a comment as well, and like and subscribe. I'm hoping to get past 200 subscribers from these range of videos, 180 at the minute, so I'd really appreciate any help. If you know anyone who would enjoy this video, please share it. Any comments as well, I do read all the comments I get and try and reply to them, so I'd really appreciate that. But yeah, really glad you've watched it. I've really enjoyed doing the videos, looking at the Halloween specials, and really looking forward to watching them like everyone else. And I hope to do some more videos soon, and I hope to see you soon in another video.